Alright, fruit dough. So we're going to make apple scrolls today. So soaking the fruit, that's our number one step. So we've got sultanas and currants. You work out your percentage of fruit based on your flour. So we've got 500 grams of flour there. So we're going to run our fruit at 250 grams, which is 50% of our flour weight. So I've got even amounts of currants and sultanas. So I've got 125 grams of each in here. And now I'm going to soak it, because if you don't soak it, it's just going to, because they're dry, they're just going to suck all the moisture out of your dough. So soaking it is very simple. You just, if you want it to soak quicker, you use warm water. So I'm just going to use warm tap water. Just cover the fruit so that it's covered, and then later we'll drain it off before we mix it through the dough. So that's the first step. We're going to soak this. Alright, so you can see I've just sort of covered the fruit there like that, and then because it's warm, that'll soak in. So leave that to soak for until we're ready to mix it into the dough, basically. So I'll just leave that aside for now. Now I'm going to turn the oven on, because that's going to act as my prover once my dough's ready. So I'm going to crank that up now. I'll get it up to about 240 probably, and just that's going to be helping me bread rise. So I'll crank that up now. Alright, so now moving along to the dough. And before you ask, Carlisle, that's not Colonel Sanders, it's bloody David Attenborough. I was expecting someone to say something about that. Everyone's like, oh, it's Colonel Sanders or it's Donald Trump. It's bloody David Attenborough. Check your eyes. Anyway, so we've got 500 grams of flour. So now we work out our percentage of all our other crap that goes in there, which is, start off with our salt. So we'll go salt first. Now again, we're working percentages out on flour weight. So salt, 2% is good. So 500 grams, 2% of 500 grams, 10 grams of salt. So we'll chuck that in. You have to have salt in bread. If you think, oh, I don't want to put salt in my bread, well, you're an idiot. It won't work. You cannot make bread without salt. It just comes out shit ass. Anyway, so we've got that in. Improver, I run a little bit high, so I'll go 2% again. So bread improver again, you get it near the yeast at the supermarket if the retards haven't pillaged all the stock. Alright, so 10 grams of that in. I've got heaps of it because I knocked it off from the bakery I was working at. So, alright, so we've got bread improver and salt, caster sugar. Someone was asking, can you make your fruit dough without sugar? Yeah, you can if you want, and just use the sweetness from the fruit, but I like to put sugar in it because it makes for a nicer finish. But by all means, leave it out if you want. If you do leave it out, lower your yeast a bit though, because the only reason I bump the yeast up high is because of the sugar. So sugar I run at about 8%, so we got 500 grams of flour, that's about 40 grams. Alright, so we got bread improver and salt, caster sugar. Someone was asking, can you make your fruit dough without sugar? Yeah, you can if you want, and just use the sweetness from the fruit, but I like to put sugar in it because it makes for a nicer finish. But by all means, leave it out if you want. If you do leave it out, lower your yeast a bit though, because the only reason I bump the yeast up high is because of the sugar. So sugar I run at about 8%, so we got 500 grams of flour, that's about 40 grams of sugar. So in with that. 40 grams. And last but certainly not least is the yeast. Right, so yeast. Use dried yeast. Dried yeast is a lot stronger than fresh. I strongly doubt any of you that have access to fresh yeast anyway. You probably don't even know what it is. So dried yeast, we'll put that in. Because there's sugar in there, we'll run this a bit higher. Normally if it was a normal white dough with no sugar, you'd put about 2%. Because of the sugar going in there, you've got to run a lot higher. And plus I like it to prove fast anyway. So I run this at about 5%. So instead of 2. So we've got 500 grams, so about 25 grams of yeast. Which is, yeah, it is a lot, but it's Melbourne and it's bloody freezing, so we want it to prove quick. Right, so that's all in. Now, last step before we oil. So this is going to help it stay a bit fresher. Again, you can leave this out, but it just adds a bit of shelf life to your product. So I'll run that in at about probably 3, so about 15 mils should be enough. There we go. Now we add our water. So water, I've worked out that the flour that you buy from the supermarket is, believe it or not, very strong. So normally a white day you run your water in at about 65%. This stuff takes water at about just over 70%. So I use my little weigh thing here, I've worked it out. So for 400 grams I was putting about 300 mils of water in. So for my 500 gram dough, 70% would be 350 mils. It's probably going to be about 400 mils, but just put less, and then as it starts to mix, you'll start to see the consistency you want. You can always add a little bit more, or add flour if you put a touch too much. But anyway, and I'm going to take that straight out of the hot tap, as hot as I can possibly get it. Again, this is going to cut your proving time down, and I tried using it just lukewarm like you would in a bakery, but it takes forever to prove. So don't be scared of putting hot water. Just take it straight out of the hot tap, bung it in there, and then it's going to prove up nice and fast for you. All right, so I'll get the water and I'll show you how to mix it in a minute. Welcome back. All right, so we've got the water in here. Let's mix it. Stick the dough hook on. So we're going to start it on slow for obvious reasons, because if you start it on fast, you're going to spit water and shit everywhere, and it's going to go all over the bench, and then your wife's going to be pretty pissed off with you. So we'll do it slowly, just to get it to come together, and this will give you an idea of whether you've got the right amount of water in it or not before you start beating the shit out of it. That looks pretty good to me. So I've ended up putting, that's 400 mils. Alright, so just stop it, have a bit of a look, see how you're going. That feels pretty good to me. So now we'll beat the shit out of it and get it developed. So I remember in the last few videos I've shown you where all you're looking for is for it to stretch and almost become see-through. So you want to get it as thin as possible. They call it the window test. So I'll show you when it starts getting developed. If it's breaking too easy, then obviously the gluten's not developed yet. So we'll beat the shit out of it for about 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and have a look. Alright, so we've been mixing that for about 3 minutes. Here we go, have a look at that. Have a look at it. Just almost transparent. That's perfect, that's what you want. That can be the greatest dough that's ever been mixed. Alright, so now we'll mix our fruit through. So fruit's been soaking since we started soaking it. So I'm going to drain this off now, so give me 1 second, I'll drain this. Yep, so fruit's drained. Ideally, what you would do, if you were more organised than what I am, you'd soak this a couple of hours before you started mixing your dough. Because if you soak it for a bit longer, obviously it's going to plump up more. So this is a pretty rapid soak, so it's probably not as plump as what it could be. But if you like your sultanas really nice and juicy, then yeah, soak it for a couple of hours before you start mixing. Alright, so that's ready. We've drained all the water off, bung that in. As I mentioned last time, do not mix this on fast. If you break that fruit, you're going to kill your yeast. Mix it slowly through. It's going to take a while, just be patient. Slowly fold it through. Alright, I'll let that go for a bit, and then we'll, I may need, because of the mixer, normally you do it on reverse, but because this mixer doesn't have reverse, it's going to take a while. I'll probably pull it out and just knead it a bit just to get that last little bit of fruit sort of mixed through evenly, but I'll show you once we get to that stage anyway, and then we'll mix it through. Alright. Alright, as you can see, it's sort of starting to mix through, but again, this mixer just has a bit of trouble mixing that fruit through, so just throw a bit of flour on your bench, and I'm just going to knead that in, the rest of it by hand. Get the bloody chair out of the way. Alright, so there we go. You just keep pulling that top bit, push. Just keep pulling that top bit, and then I'll just sort of rotate it, push, rotate, push, and just keep doing that. And you'll find that it won't take long. You can feel the fruit starting to sort of disperse a bit more evenly now. Right, so that's all mixed through. See how it looks all nice and evenly dispersed. Now we're just going to roll it into a bit of a sort of a log like so, and we'll just let that rest a bit, because if I try to, you can see it's just pulling back on itself, so we need to let it relax, because you try and pin that out now, it's just going to keep sucking back in. So we'll just let it rest for, you can cover it if you want. I'll just leave it there, rest it for about, I don't know, about 5 minutes should be enough. In the meantime, so we've got our pie apples here, so we're going to make apple scrolls today. Got our pie apples here. We'll make up a little bit of a seasoning blend to go with it. So we'll just throw a bit of caster sugar in your bowl, like so. Squash any of the lumps out. Ground cinnamon. This is pretty strong stuff, I'm sure you've used cinnamon before. Just chuck a bit of that in there. And just mix it up. We're just going to sprinkle this. Just make it to your personal preference, like how strong you want it, how much cinnamon you like. So basically just cinnamon and caster sugar, it's pretty easy. Mix that up, there we go. So we're just going to, once we put our pie apples into the scrolls, we'll sprinkle a bit of that over there just to, you know, increase the chance of getting diabetes, and then we'll scroll it up and away we go. So I'll be back soon once this has had a rest. We'll let this rest for 10 minutes and we'll come back. Alright, so she's ready to go. Bit of flour on the bench. This is moving real nice and quick. You're getting that hot water in there. It's going to cut your proving time down. In the bakery they have basically like a big sauna that they put the bread in, so it proves, you know, it's got about 80% humidity, probably about 28 to 30 degrees in there, so it proves up nice. But given the fact we don't have one of those in the house, that's the reason for putting the hot water in it. Right, so just keep pressing it out nice and evenly. Every now and then just pull it up, give it a little bit of a dust so it doesn't stick to the bench. Pretty basic. Start from the middle, roll out, start from the middle again, roll out. And then just keep evening it up. Always start from the middle, otherwise you're just pushing all your weight into that way you just push out, and then you can go the other way a bit just to even it out. You can see that fruit's sort of nice and evenly mixed through now. I finished it off by hand, it comes out pretty good. Right, so that's it. Now, take your apple. This is all personal preference, how much you like. So we'll throw a bit of that in there. My kids hate apple scrolls, so we'll put heaps in there. That will ensure that they won't eat any of them. Alright, so we'll put a nice dose of that in there. Just sort of evenly spread it out. Just give me 1 second, I'll wash my hands. Alright, so you got your apple laid out there. Take your cinnamon mix. Just give him a nice, again, however much you want. You don't have to put this in there, but apples can be a little bit bitter at times, but this just makes it a bit nicer. Don't have to go too nuts with that. Alright, so we've got that our mix over there. Take the little spray gun. This is going to, so once you scroll it, she's going to stick together. Alright, so start from one of the corners, just fold the edge over like that. And then as you scroll, sort of pull it so it's getting sort of tight, so you pull back. So it's sort of keeping it nice and tight. Then you'll get, they'll come out looking a bit nicer. So just keep, sort of pull it back on itself. So you're sort of tucking it in. And then get it to your edge. Square him up. And that little bit of water that we put along the bottom is going to help it stick. Alright, that's it. So now just keep your seam on the bottom. Just even him up a bit. That's it, she's ready to cut. Take your knife, bread knife, nice and sharp. Just cut the end piece off, you can eat that if you want. Just cook it or just be it. And just cut nice, even pieces. Take your tray, a little bit of baking paper, and then just place your scrolls onto your baking paper like so. Give them a little bit of space because they're going to at least double in size. But if you tray them up close together, that's good because then they're sort of going to join together a bit and that'll keep them nice and fresh and soft. So there we go. Just try to keep them nice and even. That's all there is to it. So now we're going to prove them. So again, I've had that oven going the whole time, so it's fit nice and hot. I'll set the tray on top of there, cover it. They'll take probably about an hour to get, you want them to at least double in size, so probably about an hour. Get them nice and big. I'll show you the size before we put them in and then we'll bake them. So in the meantime, we'll clean up. Alright, it's been a little quicker than I thought because I don't know, they've just proved up really nice today, so it's just over half an hour to be honest. And you can see they're nice and big now. See how they're joining together? That's fine, that's good, we want that. Because then they're going to stay fresh. They're going to stay fresher than if they were separate because obviously all the air is going to get around them. So this way they're going to, the only really part of the air is going to touch around the outside. So they're going to kick again when we hit the oven. So that's not the size they're going to be when they come out. They will kick again. So that, for me, is a good size. So now we can chuck them in the oven. About 230 degrees, between 220 and 230. You don't want to bake them too quick or they're going to get dark and still be raw in the guts. So we'll run at about 220, 230, and we'll see how we go. They should take about 20 minutes to half an hour to bake. Alright, we'll chuck them in and then in the meantime I'll show you how to make some sugar syrup. Alright, sugar syrup, very, very simple. Sugar and water basically. Boil the kettle, stick some hot water in there, add about 50% sugar weight to your water, so 300 mils of water, you put about 150, even 200 mils of sugar. Mix it till the sugar dissolves, and that's it, that's your sugar syrup. So these are going to make them nice and shiny. So once they come out, while they're still hot, as soon as they come out of the oven, I'm going to brush this over the top of them and it'll make, that's what gives you nice shiny looking scrolls. And then you can put icing or whatever you want to put on it after that. But I'm not going to bother putting icing on them today because we've already got sugar in the dough, sugar in the cinnamon mix, and sugar in the glaze. So we're going to end up having a seizure if we put any more sugar on it. So yeah, that's your little sugar syrup. This will keep for a while too. You don't have to throw it out. It's only sugar and water. You can keep it in the fridge. You'll keep for a few days. Yeah, so once they bake, we'll give them a brush and we should be good to go.
Okay.
Here they are. So I've adjusted the, I was baking them a little bit hot to be honest. So to get them a nice even colour so they don't darken up too quick, between 190 and 200. So adjust your temperature accordingly. If they start taking colour real fast, your oven's too hot. So you want them to bake nice and even. You can see how they've started to darken up a little bit more on the edges, but I had to turn the oven around. Anyway, so they're still hot. Now we slap the sugar syrup on top. You can see it just gives it that nice bit of shine. Helps to keep them soft too. You can be pretty generous with this stuff. Again, you don't have to put it on there, but it's more of a presentation thing than anything. I like it. I think it looks good. That's it. So they don't get a bit soggy on the bottom, you could remove them out from under there as well, so we can get a cooling wire like so. Take them off there. And ideally you want to get them off that paper, so you can flip them over, Take that paper off the bottom. Keep going again.